The reason I'm here, however, is to predict the future. And it is very likely that you'll want to know what gives me the right to predict the future, right? I mean, what are my qualifications? So I'll tell you what my qualifications to predict the future are. My chief qualification took place in 1952 when I found myself in Chicago. I found myself in Chicago because I had to address the American Chemical Society, which was a thankless task. I discussed some experiments of mine and got very few laughs. So I decided to visit the offices of a small science fiction magazine called Universe Science Fiction. At any rate, I had to think of something fast because I was ashamed to say that I didn't have the slightest idea of what to write. And thinking quickly, I wrote a story called Everest, because Everest was much in the news then. And I thought that since 7 expeditions had failed, that I might as well write a little story about why expeditions failed, and I explained it by saying that the abominable snowmen were Martians. And they kept human travelers off the top. She read the story, bought it on the spot for $30. I spent half of it in a dinner for her and me. In those days, you could buy a very good dinner for $15 and got nowhere. Went home, a sadder and wiser man, and forgot about it until the next May 30th, 1953, when somebody to whom I hadn't done a darn thing, named Edmund Hillary, and his Sherpa sidekick, Tenzing Norgay, climbed Mount Everest, and at 11:30 a.m. stood at the very tippy-tip top, they said. And, well, who was there to check up, you know? And that instantly placed Universe Science Fiction in a very, very strange ethical dilemma. If they published the story, they would make me look like a fool, and if they didn't publish the story, they would lose $30. And it took them a second and a quarter to decide to publish. And they did. They published in the December 1953 issue, so that there is my record as a predictor of the future. I'm the only man living who ever predicted that Mount Everest would never be climbed 5 months after. I will now talk about the future. And the first thing we have to remember that you're only safe if you predict the obvious. The fact that the abominable snowmen were Martians was not obvious. Probable, perhaps, but not obvious.